Okay, today I'm going to work on the shirt and possibly the pants if I have time. I initially thought that I was going to use this kind of blue-greenish color when I was doing the blocking in, and like I said, things can always change. You're really just trying to cover up the white, but I decided that I didn't really care for that color in the scene, so I came up with a color that I think is a little bit closer to a denim color, and I used ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a little bit of Payne's gray. So I've put a little spot on there, and I'm going to use liquid as my medium. And remember, I said that liquid helps it dry faster. It'll be relatively dry within a couple of hours, but one of the things that it does is it really helps with making the paint go on a little bit smoother, and then it also has the benefit of drying. So you could also use other mediums like linseed oil. I've talked about that in some of my other videos, but linseed oil will take longer to dry, and both of them, as they dry, will have a different sheen. So the linseed oil will stay a little bit shinier. I don't really want that. And I haven't really used linseed oil on here anywhere except for some of the grasses that I did back there. So I want to be consistent with what I'm putting on here too. So I'm just going to try to get the basic shape of his shirt going in here. See that we have him kind of slouched over a bit. And remember, I painted over the edge of him because I wanted to have the background disappear behind him. So even though it looks like I'm painting over some of the green parts, I technically am, but I'm okay with that because that was a guide for me. And you see I had kind of made a mark here where the seam of his shoulder is, and I have some marks down here where we have some folds and things like that that I want to pay attention to as well. So I'm just going to try to get in here. Oops. Didn't mean to go that high with it. So his shirt is going to be going behind his neck right there. And then it'll come down. So we're going to want to do a little dark part here maybe, where we're seeing the part that's inside his shirt. And so you can see how some of the background color is showing through this. And that's okay. We can work with that. So I'm going to make his shirt kind of go around here. It's going to go behind his hand. So here I don't really want to, I'm not going to do the paint over it like I did with the grass, because I'm going to be pretty precise with how I make his hand. So I'm trying to be careful with where my edges are. This may not be the best brush for the edges. It's kind of, it's an older brush. It's a little beat up, so it's a little fluffier. But right now I'm getting the colors in here where I want them. I don't really want to lose that seam, so I'm going to go kind of lightly there. And I'm going to come back in and do more of my detail placement here in a minute. So just getting everything filled in. Okay, so I put a little bit of a shadow here because the light's going to be coming through here. I didn't finish the edge of the shirt there. I'm going to put a highlight there. And the light is going to kind of spill through that gap between them. So there's going to be more of a shadow on this side. And I'm just mixing up a lighter color on a smaller brush so that I can start putting in the edge of his seam here. Maybe it's picking up a little bit of the light. Back here it might be more in shadow, but I have my Black Swan number 4 flat. And I'm just trying to mix up a real light version of the shirt color and keep the tip of my brush as narrow as I can. And this doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to be thin. That is not going on thin at all. Just trust me. We can we can edit that. So I can come back in with the darker color. And this actually has some of the shadow mixture on it, so his seam is going to be more in shadow when it goes back here. And then it kind of meets up with, that's the fold in his shirt. So here we have the base shirt color, so I can sort of, looks like it's got a little shadow on it. See how we could push that back? So even though I didn't keep my line very, very thin, I can always push it back. push it back here too. And I'm really just doing the suggestion of a seam right there, so that's fine. And see, this is the shadow where it's coming here. Got a little shadow behind his arm. And let's see how I want to do that. So this is just the fold of his shirt. He's going to have a couple other folds too, probably here and here. So I don't want this to be as pronounced as what I first put it in. I was just trying to kind of guide it. So let's see here. We need to have the separation, here, because it's his arm. So that's separate from his chest. So there should be a little bit of shade right there where his arm goes in front of his chest, because that's further back. And maybe there's a little highlight across the front of his arm here, because it's picking up the light that's coming through. That looks better. Yeah, it looks like an arm. Then as it goes further back, it's a little bit darker because it's going around. I'll pick up a little bit more of the Payne's gray and maybe even a touch of the ultramarine blue to make the darker color on the back of his shirt. Now see what I did? I just got rid of my shadow lines that I made. Those can be put back in, but his shirt needs to be darker back here because it's away from the light. And I can always bring those shadow marks back, so that's not a big deal. I'm adding more of the ultramarine blue. Shadows, when you look at them, they're not just gray. There's lots of colors and shadows. You take the time to look at them. I'm going to put some right here too. Got to cover up this blue-green that we're seeing there. So now we want to see the curvature of his arm. So I'm trying to show that it curves with the shape of the brush strokes. You see how this is creating the folds, it's creating the shapes. And I still want to come in and I want to have a bit of a gap in the back of his neckline there, so that's going to be a little more detail work. But right now, what color light do I want to have coming through here? It would be very, very pale, and it's going to be touching his shirt. So I have some yellow ochre, which could be some of the light, but it's also hitting his blue shirt. So I've taken some of the highlight color, and I just added a touch of yellow ochre to it. I'm going to see if it's enough. So let's put some of that in here so you can see a little bit of the yellow. Got to be careful though, because what do yellow and blue make? They make green. So I don't want to change the color of his shirt, but I want to show that it's a golden light. Got a bit of a smaller brush here. He's got golden light coming through and touching his shirt. So we haven't painted the background there, which I should have by now. So I'm going to have to do some tiny painting in there to cover that up. But if the light's really strong coming through there, what we could do is just blur that whole section, and maybe that's what I'll do now. I'm going to get the blue off of my brush, just kind of wipe it off, and I'm going to take some of this white, some titanium white, and I'm going to grab some of this yellow ochre, and that'll be the grass showing through right there. So I could put a bit of the green in it, I don't know that I'm going to, though. I think I'm going to keep this very blown out, as we used to say when I was a photographer. The highlights are blown out, so they're just almost white. And so I'm mixing a lot of white and just a little bit of yellow ochre here. And it's going to be just a bright blur in between them there. So let's see here. Too much paint on my brush. And I should have shown you before I wiped it off, but I went up into, I can never remember what they call that, the ferrule? Where the bristles are. You should not actually have your paint go up that high. It's not good for the brush. So I'm just going to bring this in here. Bring it down. Just touching Basil's chin. And when I do his chin, his fur will likely stick over that a bit. But again, we're going to be trying to blur this a bit. So I'm going to pull some of that down onto his shirt. Maybe have some streaks. I do want to still have a bit of a defined edge. I think the blurring idea is not sitting as well as I thought. So just bring that edge in there. There. But we still have the light between them. And I don't like how his wrist looks. So I'm going to taper that a bit too. Make his arm less wiggity wiggity. Oh, see, I did it again. All right, well, when I come in with his arm color, I can edge that back out because I have liquid in this again, so this will dry and I'll be able to paint over it. I do want to make this come to more of a definitive point right here. I don't want to have to do too much painting over because when I do his arm color, it's going to be very light, and so painting over a darker color would be hard. Now see, he's got a bend in his arm here I don't like. So I'm going to straighten that out a bit. Okay. That's better. I think I'm happy with that. So I'm going to try to get a smaller brush here, and I'm going to go in and do the little bit behind his collar. So this is a 10-0 Rosemary & Co. that shows up on the screen. Pretty small tip, and I'm going to use this to give a little definition there. So I'm just putting some Payne's Gray and some ultramarine blue on my brush with some liquid, getting it really thin. And so I know I want shirt to be right here. It's going to come around. Might be a little too dark. Just behind the edge of his neck. It's not bad. I think I'm going to lighten this up just a bit and add a seam around his collar. I can make it darker now that it gets down here in the shadows. Trying to keep it kind of uniform as it goes around. And now, see, I don't know if you can see, I can rest my finger on the sky to help steady my shaky hand. Too much coffee. Okay, that's good. And then I can come back in with, I think I'm going to use the regular shirt color to kind of push that back a bit. picked up some of the shadow, not so much the regular. I even pick up a little bit lighter just to put some definition here. Now, again, I want to show that I'm going over his back too, so I'm going to grab the brush that has my highlight color on it, and I'm going to, well, you know, I like the lightness of it up here. It's picking up the light that's coming around from the sky. See that I have some gray on there. Not sure where the gray came from. It's okay. So we want the light coming around his back a little bit too. And then the brush that has my shadow color, darken that just a bit. And on the underside of that seam, sort of made the seam disappear, didn't it? Alrighty. So again, with my shadow color, I'm going to come up and over his back. But then I want to bring the highlight color in. See here, he's getting some light from around his back. Put some highlights down on his side here, where there's folds. So got some folds here. I'm going to give him a little fold on his sleeve right here too. Oop. That's going to need a shadow as well. So see which side we want to put the shadow on. So we're seeing the fold here. Put the shadow just inside it. I think he needs a couple of highlights. Maybe his sleeve's a little bunched up here, so grab a little more white. I'm running out of my highlight mix. Some more liquid. A couple highlights there. I'm going to pick up some more of my shadow mix, Payne's Gray and the Ultramarine Blue. Okay. I'm not going to add any more color there. I'm actually going to blend it a little bit. So try to brush in the same direction that it's going. I may actually want to tone down. I don't know if I want to tone down the shadows. I just want to add more highlights. Could do both. Brush off my fan brush because it picks up a little color. Soften some of these folds here. Oops. Just got paint on my hand. Then I got more paint on my hand. Okay. And I'm going to Soften this light on his shirt too. Okay, I think I'm going to add some more highlights right there. Maybe a little bit of a harder edge right there to show that that's the front edge of the sleeve. That's looking pretty good. Okay. One thing I don't love is this up here, so let's see if I can soften that. Or maybe if I pick up a little more of the light color and push it back a bit. Yeah, that's a little better, I think. So I just wanted to see the hint of the shadow in his shirt, not be blown away by it. I think I'm gonna do one more pass at this low part of his collar. Just gonna even that out a bit. That looks better. Okay. I think that's good for his shirt. So I may actually want to do his face and his arm and his leg next, so that when I do his pants, that lays over the skin of his leg.